The wine glass slipped from Sarah's fingers, red liquid splashing across the white tablecloth like a blood stain. Her phone clattered to the floor. That text message, "I see you," still glowed on the cracked screen. She didn't need to look up to know who stood in the doorway. She could feel Derek's presence like a predator's shadow falling across prey. "You think you can just leave me?" Derek's voice cut through the restaurant's ambient warmth like a knife through silk. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks froze halfway to mouths. The acoustic guitar music playing overhead suddenly seemed obscenely cheerful against the building tension. Sarah's breathing came in short, panicked gasps as every eye in the establishment turned toward the unfolding scene. He looked worse than she remembered. 3 months since the restraining order and Derek had deteriorated. His eyes were bloodshot, ringed with dark circles that spoke of sleepless nights and too much alcohol. His clothes hung loosely on a frame that had lost muscle mass, replaced by the gaunt desperation of obsession. But it was his hands that terrified her most, clenched into white-knuckled fists, trembling with barely contained rage. "Derek, please," Sarah's voice came out smaller than she intended, hatting herself for the fear that crept into her words. "There's a restraining order. You can't be here. You'll go to jail." "That piece of paper means nothing." He lurched forward, nearly colliding with a waiter carrying a tray of pasta dishes. The young server jumped back, plates rattling dangerously. "You're my fiancé. You don't get to just walk away." "Ex-fiancé," Sarah corrected, surprising herself with a flash of defiance. She pushed her chair back, the legs screeching against the hardwood floor. Her hands gripped the table edge, knuckles white. "We've been over for 3 months, Derek. You need to leave. Now." The restaurant manager, a portly man in his 50s named Vincent, approached cautiously from the kitchen. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to." Derek whirled on him with such sudden violence that Vincent stumbled backward, nearly falling into a booth where a family with 2 young children sat frozen in terror. The mother pulled her kids closer, shielding them with her body. The father's hand moved toward his phone, but he seemed paralyzed by the uncertainty of the moment. Call 911 or stay still, and not provoke the clearly unstable man. "Stay out of this," Derek's spit flew as he shouted. "This is between me and my woman." "I'm not your woman," Sarah said, her voice stronger now, though her legs shook beneath the table. She'd spent 3 months in therapy learning to find her voice, to set boundaries, to recognize that his violence wasn't her fault. All those sessions, all that progress, and here he was again, reducing her to the terrified victim she'd fought so hard to stop being. Derek's face twisted into something ugly, something she'd seen too many times before in their apartment when his mood would shift like a switch being flipped. That look had preceded the first time he'd grabbed her throat. The first time he'd punched a hole in the wall next to her head. The first time she'd ended up in the emergency room with a clumsy fall story she'd been too ashamed to contradict. "You made me like this." He jabbed a finger in her direction, voice rising to a roar. "I lost everything because of you. My job, my reputation, my life." "You lost those things because you put your hands on me," Sarah shot back, feeling adrenaline override fear. "Because you terrorized me for 2 years. Because you." He moved with shocking speed for someone who appeared intoxicated. Derek lunged across the space between them, his hand shooting out to grab her wrist. His fingers dug into her flesh with bruising force, the same grip she'd felt 100 times before. The same grip that left purple fingerprint marks she'd hidden under long sleeves and bracelets. "You're coming with me," he snarled, yanking her forward. "We're going to talk about this like adults." Pain shot up Sarah's arm. She tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. The table tilted as her body weight dragged against it. Her purse fell, contents scattering, lipstick, keys, pepper spray rolling uselessly out of reach. "Let go, you're hurting me." Derek hauled her toward him, her feet scrambling for purchase on the slick floor. Her ankle twisted in her heels, sending a sharp lance of pain up her calf. She cried out, grabbing at his arm with her free hand, trying to pry his fingers loose. It was like trying to bend steel. Help, the word tore from her throat, raw and desperate. Somebody help me. The restaurant erupted into chaos. A woman screamed. Dishes crashed to the floor as a waiter dropped his tray in shock. The little girl at the nearby booth began crying, her wails piercing and terrified. Vincent shouted something about calling the police, fumbling for his phone with shaking hands. But no one moved to physically intervene. 12 people, maybe 15, all with phones now out, some calling 911, others recording, capturing Sarah's nightmare for social media consumption. The modern response to violence: document it, don't stop it. The hostess stood frozen behind her podium. Two college-aged men at the bar half rose from their stools, exchanging uncertain glances, neither willing to be the first to engage. Derek dragged Sarah another 3 feet toward the door. She fought him every inch, her professional shoes sliding uselessly on the polished wood. Her free hand clawed at his wrist, drawing blood, but he didn't even flinch. The alcohol and rage had made him numb to everything except his singular focus, getting her out of this public space and into his car, his domain, where he could talk sense into her, the way he always had. "Please," she gasped, tears streaming down her face now, her earlier defiance crumbling under the reality of his physical dominance. "Derek, please, you're scaring me." "Good," he spat. "You should be scared. You think you can ruin my life and just skip away. You think some judge's order protects you." Sarah's vision blurred with tears and panic. This was it. This was how it ended. He'd get her to his car, drive somewhere remote, and this time he wouldn't stop at bruises. This time, the rage in his eyes promised something final. The door was only 10 feet away now, 8 feet, 6. And then, like a force of nature materializing from stillness, Marcus Reed was there. His hand locked onto Derek's shoulder, not aggressive, not violent, but absolutely immovable. The quiet man from 3 tables over, the one no one had noticed, the one who'd been reading his book in peaceful solitude just 60 seconds ago, now stood between Sarah and her worst nightmare. "Let her go." 2 words, spoken softly, calmly, but carrying an authority that made even Derek pause mid-stride. The voice of someone utterly unafraid, someone who had faced far worse than a drunk, abusive ex-boyfriend on a Friday night. For just a moment, the restaurant held its collective breath, suspended between terror and hope, violence and salvation. And everything was about to change. Marcus Reed's hand rested on Derek's shoulder with deceptive gentleness, but Sarah could see the white pressure marks where his fingers gripped. It wasn't the grab of an angry bystander looking for a fight. It was the calculated hold of someone who knew exactly how much force to apply, where to apply it, and what would happen next. "Let her go," Marcus repeated, his voice carrying the same measured calm as before. Derek's head whipped around, fury blazing in his bloodshot eyes. For a split second, he seemed to measure the man before him. Mid-30s, average height, lean build, nothing particularly intimidating about his appearance. Just another civilian who'd watched too many action movies and thought he could play hero. "Big mistake." "Mind your own business, old man," Derek snarled, though Marcus couldn't have been more than a few years older. He tried to jerk his shoulder free, but the hand didn't budge. Confusion flickered across Derek's face, quickly replaced by escalating rage. "This is between me and my girl." "She's not your girl," Marcus said simply. His eyes, a steel gray that Sarah would remember for the rest of her life, remained utterly calm. "And you're going to let go of her wrist, now." The entire restaurant seemed to lean forward collectively, phones raised, capturing every second. The mother with the 2 children had pulled them completely under the table. Vincent stood frozen with his phone pressed to his ear, whispering urgently to 911 dispatch. The bartender had his hand on a bottle, clearly debating whether to use it as a weapon if needed. Derek's face contorted with rage. He released Sarah's wrist, but only so he could turn his full attention to this interloper who dared challenge him. Sarah stumbled backward, catching herself on a nearby chair, cradling her bruised wrist against her chest. She should run. She should get to safety. But her legs wouldn't move, transfixed by what was about to unfold. "You want to be a hero," Derek squared up to Marcus, puffing his chest out in the universal display of masculine aggression. He had 3 inches and probably 40 pounds on the quieter man. "Fine, let me show you what happens to heroes." Derek threw the punch with all the finesse of a street brawler. A wide, looping right hook telegraphed so obviously that Marcus had approximately a century to respond. To Sarah, watching in horror, time seemed to slow to a crawl. She saw Derek's shoulder rotate back, saw his weight shift to his rear foot, saw the fist begin its arc toward Marcus's jaw. Marcus moved like water. His upper body swayed backward just enough, maybe 4 inches, and Derek's fist sailed past his face, missing by a margin so slight that Sarah heard the whoosh of air displacement. Derek's momentum carried him forward off balance. Before he could recover, Marcus had already shifted. What happened in the next 3 seconds would be replayed millions of times on social media, analyzed frame by frame, shared with commentary ranging from "Holy sh*T" to detailed tactical breakdowns by military veterans who recognized exactly what they were seeing. Marcus's left hand shot out, capturing Derek's extended right arm at the wrist. His right hand clamped onto Derek's elbow. In one fluid, circular motion that seemed to defy physics, Marcus stepped to the side, rotated his hips, and used Derek's own forward momentum against him. It was beautiful in its efficiency. No wasted movement, no excess force, just pure mechanical advantage. Derek's eyes went wide as he suddenly found himself airborne, his feet leaving the ground as his world tilted 90 degrees. The technique, later identified by military commentators as a variation of an Aikido irami nage, combined with SEAL close quarters combat training, sent all 200 pounds of Derek crashing face first onto the hardwood floor with an impact that rattled nearby tables. Plates jumped, wine glasses tipped, someone gasped. Derek hit hard, the air exploding from his lungs in a painful grunt. Before his brain could even process what had happened, Marcus was already moving to the next phase of control. He dropped smoothly to one knee, his left hand maintaining control of Derek's captured arm while his right knee positioned precisely between Derek's shoulder blades. The pressure was immediate and immobilizing. "Don't," Marcus said quietly as Derek began to thrash. "You'll dislocate your shoulder." Derek, operating on pure rage and wounded pride, didn't listen. He bucked violently, trying to throw off his attacker, trying to roll, trying to do anything to escape this humiliating position. His free hand scrabbled against the floor, searching for purchase, for leverage, for anything. Marcus's expression didn't change. With clinical precision, he adjusted his grip, his fingers finding a specific cluster of nerves in Derek's shoulder that Sarah didn't know existed. Derek's entire body went rigid, a strangled cry escaping his throat. "That's the brachial plexus," Marcus explained, his voice conversational, as if he were teaching a class rather than restraining a violent man. "Bundle of nerves that control your entire arm. I can make this very uncomfortable, or you can stop fighting. Your choice." Derek made a sound somewhere between a whimper and a growl. His free hand slapped the floor once, twice, like a wrestler tapping out. The fight drained from his body, replaced by the survival instinct that recognized, on some primal level, that he was utterly outmatched. Marcus didn't ease up. He'd seen too many combatants fake submission only to attack when restraints loosened. His knee remained planted between Derek's shoulders, maintaining just enough pressure to keep him pinned without causing injury. His hands stayed locked in position, ready to apply that nerve pressure again if needed. Only then did Marcus look up, his eyes finding Sarah's. "You're safe now," he said, and somehow, despite the chaos, despite the adrenaline still flooding her system, despite the fact that her abuser was thrashing on the floor just feet away, Sarah believed him. Just breathe, nice and slow, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Sarah realized she'd been hyperventilating, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Following his instruction, something about his calm authority made it impossible not to. She drew a deep, shaky breath. Then another. Her racing heart began to slow just slightly. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Derek renewed his struggling, cursing now, his voice muffled against the floor. "Get off me, police brutality, I'll sue, I'm not police," Marcus interrupted mildly. "I'm a concerned citizen performing a lawful restraint of someone committing assault and violating a protective order. There's a difference." He glanced at Vincent, who still stood with his phone out. "I assume you got that call through." "Why, yes," Vincent stammered. "They said 2 minutes." "Good." Marcus's attention shifted to the dozen phones still recording. "I'd appreciate if those videos make it to the authorities. Clear documentation of events protects everyone." A young woman in a corner booth called out, voice shaking but determined, "Already uploading to the cloud and sending to police." Derek spat another curse, trying once more to break free. Marcus's fingers found that nerve cluster again, and Derek's bravado dissolved into a yelp of pain. "Last warning," Marcus said, his voice never rising above conversational volume. "The police are almost here. You can meet them calm and cooperative, or you can meet them after I've made the next 90 seconds very educational for you. Choose wisely." Derek finally went limp, defeated, humiliated, and in pain. His face pressed against the floor, he could do nothing but wait for the inevitable handcuffs. Marcus remained perfectly still, a statue of controlled force, until the blue and red lights flashed through the restaurant windows and 2 officers rushed through the door, hands on their weapons. "Hands where I can see them," the lead officer shouted. Marcus slowly raised his left hand, keeping his right maintaining minimal control on Derek. "Friendly here, officers. This man assaulted that woman," he nodded toward Sarah, "in violation of a restraining order. I intervened. He's yours whenever you're ready." The lead officer's eyes widened slightly. "Senior Chief Reed." Marcus's expression flickered with something, surprise, recognition. "Officer Martinez, been a while." "Since the Veterans Outreach Program last year," Martinez confirmed, his posture relaxing as he recognized the man on the floor as the threat, not the one restraining him. "Okay, we've got him. You can let go." Marcus released Derek smoothly, rising to his feet and stepping back as Martinez and his partner moved in with handcuffs. Derek was still cursing, still threatening lawsuits, still refusing to accept his situation as he was hauled to his feet. Sarah watched as they led him away, his threats fading as the restaurant door closed behind him. The danger had passed. The nightmare was over. But the real story was just beginning. The restaurant slowly exhaled as the police cruiser's taillights disappeared down the street, Derek's muffled shouting fading into the San Diego night. Sarah stood trembling by her overturned table, her bruised wrist cradled against her chest, unable to process what had just happened. The other diners remained frozen in a collective state of shock, phones still raised, the weight of witnessed violence hanging in the air like smoke. Marcus Reed quietly returned to his table. While officers took Sarah's statement and Vincent animatedly recounted events to the remaining policemen, Marcus simply picked up his fallen book, straightened his chair, and sat down as if he'd merely gotten up to use the restroom. His water glass had spilled during the confrontation, and he calmly used his napkin to blot the puddle spreading across the table. A young waitress approached him hesitantly, a fresh water glass shaking slightly in her hands. "Sir, thank you. You were incredible." Marcus looked up, genuine confusion crossing his features. "Just helped a woman in trouble. Anyone would have done the same." "But nobody did," she said softly, setting down the glass. "Except you." Before Marcus could respond, Officer Martinez appeared at his table, notepad in hand. "Senior Chief, I need a statement for the report." "I'm retired, Martinez, just Marcus now." He provided a concise clinical account of events: Derek's aggressive entry, the assault on Sarah, his intervention, the restraint. No embellishment, no heroics, just facts delivered with military precision. 5 minutes later, Martinez closed his notepad. "You're free to go. Though between you and me," Martinez lowered his voice, "that was some impressive work. Textbook restraint protocol." Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Like I said, anyone would have helped." But Martinez and Marcus both knew that wasn't true. 12 people had watched. One had acted. As Marcus signed the statement, he didn't notice the young woman in the corner booth, the one who'd called out about uploading to the cloud, typing furiously on her phone. College student. Communications major. 300,000 TikTok followers. Her video of the incident had been uploading since the moment Derek hit the floor. By the time Marcus paid his bill 20 minutes later, Vincent tried to refuse payment. Marcus insisted. The video had 17,000 views. By the time he reached his apartment 15 blocks away, it had broken 100,000. By midnight, the world knew his name. The first video came from the communications student, Madison Chen. 47 seconds of shaky phone footage capturing the entire confrontation from Derek's wild punch to his humiliating takedown. The caption read, "Crazy restaurant attack stopped by mystery hero. Watch till the end, face screaming in fear, hero San Diego viral." The comment section exploded. "Bro, who is this guy? That's not regular self-defense, that's training. Did you see how fast he moved? That's military shit right there. The way he controlled that dude without even breaking a sweat. Damn." A second angle appeared within the hour. A different diner had captured the incident from the side. This one showed Marcus's face clearly, the calm expression never changing, the precise movements of someone operating on pure muscle memory. 58 seconds, 200,000 views in 30 minutes. Then a third angle, a fourth. Every phone in that restaurant had become a witness, and now the internet had multiple perspectives of the same 3 seconds of devastating efficiency. Frame-by-frame analysis began immediately. A former MMA fighter on YouTube broke down the technique. "Okay, pause right here. See how he captures the extended arm? That's not jiu-jitsu. That's not wrestling. That's military close-quarters combat. Look at the hip rotation. He's using the attacker's momentum, redirecting it. And here," the fighter tapped his screen, "this transition to the ground control. That's SEAL team-level training. I'd bet money on it." His video got 3 million views by morning. On Reddit, the R military porn and R justice served communities were in full detective mode. Users enhanced screenshots, analyzed body language, debated techniques. Someone posted, "Anyone else notice the hand positioning on the shoulder restraint? That's brachial plexus control. Special Forces teaches that." Then came the breakthrough. A user named Trident Vet 47 posted at 2:17 a.m. "Holy shit, I know this guy. That's Senior Chief Marcus Reed. Served with him in Team 3. Afghanistan 2019. This man is the real deal." The internet detonated. Within minutes, Marcus's military record began surfacing, or at least the unclassified portions. Screenshots of commendation ceremonies. A photo from 2018 showing him receiving a Bronze Star, standing at attention while an admiral pinned the medal to his chest. Another image from a Navy SEAL training graduation, Marcus among a group of stone-faced warriors, trident pin gleaming on his uniform. A military blogger ran the story at 4:00 a.m. Navy SEAL STOPS restaurant attack, decorated warrior steps in when others stand by. By 6:00 a.m., local San Diego news had picked it up. By 8:00 a.m., it was national. By noon, international outlets were running the story. The video had been viewed 47 million times across all platforms. But it wasn't just the takedown that captivated people. It was everything else. Users obsessed over every detail. The calm demeanor. He looks bored like this happens every Tuesday. The precise control. Never hit the guy once, just controlled him. That's a professional. The reassurance to Sarah. Did you hear him tell her to breathe while restraining an attacker, ice in his veins? The humble exit. My man just went back to his book like nothing happened. Legend. Deep dives into Marcus's background flooded social media. Military enthusiasts found and shared his achievements. 15 years of service, multiple combat deployments, specialized training in counterterrorism and hostage rescue. One particularly detailed thread chronicled his career. Iraq in 2011, Syria in 2015, Afghanistan multiple tour, training exercises in Japan and South Korea. A former Team 3 member gave an interview to a military podcast. Marcus Reed was our moral compass. The guy who'd clear a room of insurgents with brutal efficiency, then spend hours helping local kids. He saved my life twice, once in combat, once when I came home broken and suicidal. If anyone deserves the hero label, it's him. But he'll hate that I said this. He always deflected praise. Veterans across social media echoed the sentiment. Stories emerged of Marcus helping struggling teammates, volunteering at VA hospitals, quietly supporting Gold Star families. The picture of a man who embodied the SEAL ethos, quiet professionals who did the right thing without expectation of recognition. News stations camped outside his apartment building by 10:00 a.m. Marcus didn't answer his door. Sarah, giving her statement to local news from her sister's house, could barely speak through tears. I thought I was going to die. He appeared out of nowhere and he saved my life. I don't even know how to thank him. The reporter asked, have you been able to contact Mr. Reed? He left the restaurant before I could even say thank you properly, just disappeared. That detail, the humble warrior who'd saved a woman's life, then quietly paid his bill and left, became the story's emotional core. In an age of performative heroism and social media clout chasing, here was someone who'd done something genuinely heroic and wanted absolutely nothing in return. Hashtags trended worldwide. Navy SEAL hero Marcus Reed, real hero San Diego SEAL. Podcasters dissected the video. Self-defense instructors used it as a teaching tool. Hollywood agents tried to find contact information. Publishers wanted book deals. Speaking bureaus offered five-figure fees. And through it all, Marcus Reed remained silent. At his apartment, he sat in the dark, curtains drawn, phone turned off. On his coffee table lay 3 items. His worn copy of The Body Keeps the Score, a PTSD management book, his VA appointment card for tomorrow's therapy session, and a bottle of whiskey he'd been staring at for an hour without opening. The attention, the cameras, the celebration, it was everything he'd never wanted. He'd spent 15 years in the shadows, doing things that would never make headlines, losing friends whose names would never be known. And now the world wanted to make him famous for 3 seconds of muscle memory in an Italian restaurant. His phone, though powered off, had received 487 text messages, 1,243 missed calls, and enough voicemails to fill hours. Marcus picked up the whiskey bottle, studied it for a long moment, then set it back down unopened. Tomorrow, he'd have to face this. Tonight, he just wanted to disappear back into the quiet anonymity he'd cultivated so carefully. But the internet, as it always does, had other plans. The story was just beginning. The sun barely crested the San Diego horizon when the first reporter knocked on Marcus Reed's door. Then another. By 7:00 a.m., a crowd of journalists, cameras, and curious neighbors had formed outside his modest apartment building in the Hillcrest neighborhood, a far cry from the exclusive areas where celebrated heroes typically resided. Marcus didn't answer. Inside apartment 4B, he sat on his worn couch, the same position he'd held for most of the night, watching the sunrise paint streaks of orange across his wall. The bottle of whiskey remained untouched on the coffee table, a small victory he'd learned to measure in his 8 months of civilian life. His phone, now powered on out of necessity, buzzed incessantly. Text messages from former teammates expressing pride and amusement. Saw the video, classic Reed. Silent professional my ass, you're famous now, read one from his former Team 3 squad leader. Another from his SEAL buddy Jake. Dude, you broke the internet. Also, that takedown was poetry. Miss working with you. But it was the message from Dr. Patricia Morrison, his VA-assigned therapist, that made him actually respond. Saw the news. How are you holding up? Remember our breathing exercises. My office is available if you need to talk today. Marcus typed back, handling it. See you at our regular appointment Thursday. That was a lie. He wasn't handling it. The attention felt like a spotlight on everything he'd spent months trying to process privately. The nightmares, the hypervigilance, the suffocating guilt of coming home when so many hadn't. What the viral videos didn't show, what the celebrating masses didn't know, was that Marcus Reed was barely holding himself together. By noon, investigative journalists had pieced together a portrait that was both impressive and heartbreaking. Marcus Jonathan Reed, born in rural Montana, 1987, enlisted in the Navy at 19 following a family tradition. His grandfather served in Vietnam, his father in Desert Storm. But Marcus didn't want desk work or supply chains. He wanted to be where it mattered most. SEAL training nearly broke him, as it does most candidates. Of the 140 men who started basic underwater demolition SEAL, Bud S., training with him, only 23 graduated. Marcus finished third in his class. His career read like a modern warfare highlight reel. Iraq during the surge, hunting high-value targets in the dead of night. Syria, where he participated in operations so classified that even now details remained redacted. Afghanistan, 3 tours, each more brutal than the last. His service record, partially obtained through Freedom of Information requests, showed an escalating pattern of dangerous assignments. Hostage rescues, direct action raids, counterterrorism operations deep in enemy territory. The medals were impressive. 2 Bronze Stars with Valor, a Purple Heart from an IED blast in Kandahar that killed 2 teammates, Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. But it was the details behind the medals that painted the real picture. A military journalist who'd embedded with SEAL Team 3 in 2018 published an article by 2:00 p.m. I spent 3 months with Reed's unit. The man was a living contradiction, absolutely lethal in combat, then spending his downtime teaching Afghan kids to play soccer. I watched him clear a compound of insurgents with mechanical efficiency, then stay up all night performing CPR on a wounded local who'd been caught in crossfire. He saved that man's life. Never mentioned it in his report. The article continued. Reed's teammates called him the monk because of his quiet intensity. While others blew off steam with loud bravado, Reed read philosophy books and wrote letters to the families of fallen brothers. He volunteered for the most dangerous missions but showed no ego about it. When I asked him once why he kept volunteering for the worst assignments, he said, "Someone has to. Might as well be someone without kids waiting at home." Former teammates emerged with stories. A Navy SEAL named Rodriguez told CNN, "Marcus saved my life in Helmand Province. Ambush situation, I took rounds in the leg, couldn't move. Everyone else was pinned down. Marcus crossed 40 meters of open ground under fire, and I mean heavy fire, grabbed me and dragged me to cover. Took a round through his shoulder doing it. You know what he said after? You'd have done the same." That's Marcus. Courage was just routine to him. Another SEAL, speaking anonymously, revealed darker details. The thing people don't understand is what that life costs. Marcus saw things, did things, lost people. It changes you at a cellular level. We lost our best breacher in 2019, guy named Tommy Chen. Marcus was 10 feet away when it happened. IED we didn't detect. Marcus tried to save him, worked on him for 20 minutes even though Tommy was gone. Marcus never talked about it, but he wasn't the same after. None of us were. What brought Marcus to that restaurant on that specific Friday night was a story of quiet desperation mixed with determined recovery. His VA therapist, Dr. Morrison, gave a carefully worded statement to one persistent reporter. "I can't discuss specifics due to patient confidentiality, but I can say that Mr. Reed takes his mental health seriously. Many veterans struggle with reintegration. The skills that kept them alive in combat, hypervigilance, threat assessment, immediate action, don't always translate well to civilian life. Mr. Reed has been working diligently on his transition." What she didn't say: Marcus had been hospitalized for 3 days last December after a severe PTSD episode. What triggered it? Christmas music in a grocery store had somehow intersected with a traumatic memory, sending him into a dissociative state where he believed he was back in Kandahar. He'd come to in the frozen food aisle, security guards surrounding him, having no memory of the previous 20 minutes. That incident had terrified him into aggressive treatment, twice-weekly therapy, EMDR sessions to process trauma, medication he took religiously despite hating how it dulled his edges, and exposure therapy, deliberately putting himself in public situations that triggered his hypervigilance, learning to manage it rather than avoid it. The restaurant was exposure therapy. His assignment from Dr. Morrison: spend 2 hours in a crowded public place practicing grounding techniques. Notice the sights, sounds, smells. When his threat assessment instincts kicked in, cataloging exits, identifying potential dangers, profiling every person who entered, he was supposed to acknowledge the thoughts, then redirect to his book. The worn paperback he'd been reading, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, a seminal text on trauma recovery. Marcus had filled the margins with notes, highlighted passages, dog-eared pages. He was on his 3rd read-through, trying to understand his own broken pieces. He'd chosen that specific restaurant because it was busy but not chaotic, public but not overwhelming. He'd sat at that specific table because it offered a clear view of entrances and exits. Old habits died hard, but was positioned far enough from the kitchen that sudden noises wouldn't trigger him. For 90 minutes, the exposure therapy had been working. He'd successfully redirected his attention from threat assessment to his book 17 times. He was proud of that number. Progress, Dr. Morrison would say. Then Derek had walked through the door, and every combat instinct Marcus had spent months learning to quiet had roared back to life. By evening, a more complete picture emerged on social media. Someone found Marcus's volunteer record at the San Diego VA hospital. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, 6:00 p.m. to 9:00 p.m., Marcus ran a group therapy session for combat veterans struggling with reintegration. Not officially, he wasn't a licensed therapist. But the VA had recognized that sometimes veterans needed to talk to someone who'd been there, who understood on a level no civilian therapist could. A veteran who attended those sessions posted on Facebook, "Marcus saved my life and he doesn't even know it. I was planning my suicide, had the gun loaded, was writing the note. Decided to go to one last group session." Marcus shared his story, how he'd stood on a bridge last July, looking at the water, thinking how easy it would be to just step off. Said what stopped him was thinking about his teammates who didn't make it home, how they'd fought so hard to live, and how he owed it to them to fight just as hard. That story saved me. Marcus Reed is a hero, but not for what he did in that restaurant. He's a hero for every Tuesday and Thursday when he shows up and helps broken men find reasons to keep living. The post went viral. Thousands of comments from veterans sharing similar stories. Marcus had touched more lives in 8 months of civilian struggle than most people manage in a lifetime. But Marcus didn't see any of it. By the time the sun set on what should have been an ordinary Saturday, he disconnected his internet, drawn every curtain, and sat in silence, trying to reconcile the man the world was celebrating with the man he saw in the mirror every morning. Someone still fighting his hardest battle, the one that never made headlines. The one inside his own mind. Sarah Mitchell spent 3 days trying to find Marcus Reed. The viral videos had given her his name, but nothing more. No phone number, no email, no social media presence. The man who'd saved her life had vanished as thoroughly as smoke in wind. She tried the police department. Officer Martinez, sympathetic but bound by privacy regulations, could only confirm that Marcus had given a statement and left contact information on file. She tried the restaurant. Vincent offered to forward a message, but admitted he had no way to guarantee delivery. She'd even stood outside his apartment building, address discovered through a determined Google search and property records, but the wall of reporters camped there made approaching impossible. Finally, on the 4th day after the incident, Sarah took a different approach. She remembered something from the news coverage, a detail most had glossed over in their focus on the dramatic takedown. Marcus volunteered at the San Diego VA hospital. Tuesday evening, 5:45 p.m., Sarah walked through the VA's automatic doors, her heart hammering. She'd rehearsed what to say 100 times. "Thank you" seemed impossibly inadequate. "You saved my life" felt too dramatic, even though it was literally true. The bruises on her wrist, now a grotesque palette of purple, yellow, and green, served as a constant reminder of how close she'd come. The receptionist, a kind-faced woman named Gloria, eyed Sarah's visitor badge request with practiced skepticism. "Name of the veteran you're visiting?" I'm looking for Marcus Reed. He volunteers here on Tuesdays." Gloria's expression shifted, recognition mixed with protectiveness. "You a reporter?" "No, God, no, Sarah took a breath, deciding on honesty. "I'm Sarah Mitchell, the woman from the restaurant, the one he helped." Gloria's entire demeanor transformed. She leaned forward conspiratorially. "3rd floor, group therapy room. But honey," she added gently, "he's in session until 9. You'll have to wait." Sarah waited. She sat in the 3rd floor hallway on an uncomfortable plastic chair, watching veterans shuffle past, some on crutches, others in wheelchairs, many carrying invisible wounds heavier than any physical injury. The door to room 3C remained closed, but she could occasionally hear Marcus's voice through it. Calm, steady, the same tone he'd used when telling her to breathe. At 9:07 p.m. the door opened. 6 men filed out, ranging from their 20s to their 60s. They moved with the particular body language Sarah had learned to recognize, hyper-aware, eyes constantly scanning, shoulders tight with tension that never fully released. Combat veterans, Marcus's people. Marcus emerged last, looking exhausted. He wore jeans and a faded navy t-shirt, his hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. He was talking to a younger vet, early 20s, barely old enough to buy a beer. "Remember what we discussed, Kevin. 3 times daily, even when it feels stupid, especially when it feels stupid." "Yes, Senior Chief," the young man said automatically. "Just Marcus," he corrected gently. "I work for a living now, same as you." The joke, an old military quip about the difference between officers and enlisted, earned a small smile from Kevin before he headed toward the elevators. Only then did Marcus notice Sarah. He froze mid-step, surprise flickering across his features before settling into something more guarded. "Ms. Mitchell." "Sarah, please," she stood, suddenly uncertain. "I'm sorry to ambush you like this. I've been trying to reach you, but—" "I know I've been unavailable." He glanced at the empty hallway, clearly uncomfortable. "How did you find me?" "The news mentioned you volunteer here. I took a chance." She gestured to the chairs. "Could we talk, just for a few minutes?" Marcus hesitated, every instinct probably screaming at him to politely decline and disappear. But something in Sarah's expression, the same desperation he'd seen Friday night, though now mixed with determination rather than terror, made him nod. They sat. The hallway fluorescents hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows that made Marcus look older, more worn than he had in the restaurant's warm lighting. I needed to thank you, Sarah began, her voice stronger than she felt. What you did. Anyone would have helped, Marcus interrupted, the same deflection he'd given everyone else. No, Sarah said firmly. They wouldn't have, they didn't. She held up her phone, showing him one of the viral videos frozen on the frame where 12 people stood watching, phones raised, while Derek dragged her toward the door. See that? 12 people. 12 people with clear shots, with witnesses, with the safety of numbers. Not one moved, except you. Marcus stared at the image, jaw tightening. Fear paralyzes people. It doesn't make them bad. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm saying you're different. Sarah pulled her sleeve up, revealing the bruises in full Technicolor horror. Derek put me in the hospital twice before. Broken ribs the first time. Concussion the second. I left him, got a restraining order, moved apartments, changed my routine. I thought I was safe. I thought. Her voice cracked. If you hadn't been there, I don't think I'd be sitting here right now. Marcus looked at the bruises, and Sarah saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition of violence. Intimate knowledge of what humans could do to each other. How's the wrist? Sprained, it'll heal. She lowered her sleeve. How are you, with all the attention, the media circus? I've been better, he admitted, then seemed surprised he'd said it out loud. I saw some of the coverage. Your military record, the things people are saying. Sarah chose her words carefully. It must be strange, having your privacy invaded like that. Marcus laughed, but it held no humor. Strange is one word for it. I spent 15 years as a quiet professional. Silent service isn't just a motto, it's a way of life. And now, he gestured vaguely at nothing. Now millions of people have opinions about 3 seconds of my life. The news said you're retired, adjusting to civilian life. That's the polite version. Marcus leaned back, studying the ceiling tiles like they held answers. The real version, I'm a mess, Sarah. PTSD, nightmares, the whole veteran cliché package. That restaurant wasn't just dinner. It was exposure therapy homework. I was supposed to practice being in public without threat assessing every person who walked through the door. Sarah absorbed this, the pieces clicking together. But when Derek came in, all that therapy went out the window. Saw the threat, assessed the situation, acted on training. My therapist says I need to not view that as a failure, but, he shrugged. Hard not to. It saved my life, Sarah said quietly. Your training, your instincts, whatever you want to call it, it saved my life. That's not a failure. They sat in silence for a moment. Two broken people finding unexpected common ground in a VA hospital hallway. Can I ask you something? Sarah finally said. In the restaurant, when you had Derek on the ground, you told me to breathe, to do it slowly, in through my nose, out through my mouth. How did you know I needed that? Marcus's expression softened slightly. Recognized the panic response. Seen it in hostages, in teammates after firefights, in myself every morning at 3 a.m. when the nightmares wake me up. Controlled breathing resets your nervous system. Doesn't fix everything, but it helps. It did help. Your voice, it cut through the panic somehow. Probably the command tone. 15 years of giving orders in crisis situations. He paused. I'm glad it helped. Sarah pulled a business card from her purse, her therapist's card, with a handwritten note on the back. My therapist specializes in trauma survivors. When I told her what happened, she said if I ever found you to give you this. It's her colleague who works specifically with veterans. No pressure, but she offered the card. Marcus took it, reading the note. For the man who helped my patient, we help the helpers. First session free, no obligation. Dr. Chen. I already have a therapist, Marcus said, but he pocketed the card. Good, that's good. Sarah stood, sensing she'd taken enough of his time. I won't keep you. I just needed to say thank you properly without cameras and chaos. Marcus stood too. You're welcome, and Sarah, I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad you got away from him. Derek's in jail. Arraignment is next week. Assault, violating a restraining order, public intoxication. My lawyer says he's looking at 5 years minimum. Good. The single word carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much violence against the innocent. At the elevator, Sarah turned back. Marcus, one more thing. You said in the restaurant that anyone would have helped. But here's the thing, not just anyone could have helped the way you did. Your training, your skill, your calm, that saved me without hurting Derek unnecessarily. That takes someone special, whether you believe it or not. The elevator dinged. Sarah stepped in, watching Marcus's conflicted expression as the doors closed between them. In the empty hallway, Marcus Reed stood holding a stranger's therapist's card, feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Not happiness exactly, not healing not yet. But maybe, just maybe, the smallest flicker of purpose. The restaurant video had done what viral moments do best. It sparked a movement nobody saw coming. It started small. Vincent, the restaurant owner, posted on the establishment's Instagram 3 days after the incident. We're proud that our restaurant was where Marcus Reed chose to intervene and save a life. In his honor, we're donating 10% of this week's proceeds to the San Diego Veterans Foundation. Heroes among us. The post got 47,000 likes in 6 hours. By Thursday, the line outside Bella Vita stretched around the block. People weren't just coming for the food. They were coming to sit at table 7, where Marcus had been reading. To stand where a hero had stood. The restaurant became an unlikely pilgrimage site, and Vincent, overwhelmed by the response, made a decision that would change everything. We're establishing the Marcus Reed Good Samaritan Fund, he announced at a hastily organized press conference. 100% of donations will support veteran mental health services and domestic violence prevention programs, because that's what this story is really about, helping those who need it most. The fund raised $50,000 in the first day. By the end of the week, it had crossed $300,000. Local businesses joined in. A coffee shop near the VA hospital announced free coffee for veterans every Tuesday and Thursday, the nights Marcus held his group sessions. A gym offered free memberships to domestic violence survivors. A law firm volunteered pro bono services for restraining order cases. The city of San Diego, sensing the moment, scheduled a recognition ceremony at City Hall. Mayor Jennifer Rodriguez personally called Marcus to invite him. "With all due respect, ma'am, I'd rather not," Marcus said into his phone, staring at his apartment wall. "I understand, Mr. Reed, truly. But this isn't about celebrating you. It's about showing our community that we value people who act when others freeze. You inspire people." "I'm not inspirational. I'm a guy with PTSD who happened to be in the right place at the right time." "Then come for the wrong reasons," the mayor said gently. "Come because Sarah Mitchell will be there, and she deserves to publicly thank the man who saved her life. Come because 12 veterans who attend your group sessions started a petition with 15,000 signatures asking you to accept. Come because sometimes we have to do hard things because they matter to other people." Marcus closed his eyes. The last part hit differently. It was something he'd told Kevin, the young vet, just last week. "When's the ceremony?" "Saturday, 2 p.m. And Marcus, you don't have to give a speech, just show up." Saturday arrived with typical San Diego sunshine. Marcus stood in his apartment, staring at his dress uniform hanging in the closet. He hadn't worn it since his retirement ceremony 8 months ago. The Navy service dress blue uniform, dark navy jacket, white shirt, black tie, ribbons arranged in precise rows over his left breast pocket. His hands shook slightly as he lifted it from the hanger. The ribbons told the story he never spoke aloud. Bronze Star with Valor device, 2 of them, Purple Heart, Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. 12 ribbons in total, each representing blood, sweat, fear, and friends who hadn't come home. He dressed slowly, muscle memory guiding him through the routine he'd performed hundreds of times. When he looked in the mirror, he barely recognized himself. The uniform transformed him from broken civilian to the warrior he'd once been. His phone buzzed. A text from Jake, his former teammate. Saw the news about the ceremony. Wish I could be there, brother. Wear it proud. You earned every ribbon. Tommy would be proud too. The mention of Tommy Chen, killed by that IED in 2019, nearly undid him. Marcus gripped the bathroom sink, using the breathing technique Dr. Morrison had taught him. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. Repeat. It took 3 minutes before his hands stopped shaking. City Hall's main plaza was packed. News crews, cameras, several hundred people standing in the afternoon heat. Marcus arrived quietly through a side entrance, per the mayor's suggestion, avoiding the crowd. Backstage in the mayor's office, he found Sarah waiting. She'd transformed since that night in the restaurant hallway. Professional attire, hair styled, makeup covering the last traces of stress that had marked her features. But her eyes still carried shadows. Trauma didn't disappear in 2 weeks. "You came," she said, relief evident in her voice. "You made a compelling case through the mayor." Sarah smiled, tentative but genuine. "I needed you here for me, but also, there's something I want to tell you after." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Mayor Rodriguez swept in, all business and energy. "Mr. Reed, thank you for coming. We'll keep this brief, I promise. You'll stand, I'll say some words, present a commendation, and you're done. Sarah will speak if she's comfortable." She looked to Sarah, who nodded. "I'm ready." The ceremony was both better and worse than Marcus expected. Better because the mayor kept her word, short, heartfelt, no political grandstanding. She spoke about community, about the importance of action over apathy, about how one person's courage could inspire thousands. Worse because standing in front of hundreds of people, cameras flashing, felt like being trapped in a spotlight he couldn't escape. His hypervigilance kicked into overdrive, counting exits, assessing crowd, identifying potential threats. Old habits screaming at him despite knowing, rationally, he was safe. Then Sarah took the microphone. "2 weeks ago I thought my life was ending," she began, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "My abusive ex-boyfriend violated a restraining order, assaulted me in public, and tried to drag me away to," she paused, swallowing hard. "To do whatever he planned. I screamed for help. 12 people watched. 1 person acted." She looked directly at Marcus. "Marcus Reed saved my life that night, but what I've learned since is that he saves lives every week. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he sits with broken veterans and helps them find reasons to keep living. He doesn't do it for recognition. He does it because it's right." Sarah's voice grew stronger. "Derek, my ex, he took 2 years of my life. He took my confidence, my sense of safety, my belief that I mattered. In 3 seconds, Marcus gave it all back. Not just by stopping Derek, but by showing me what real strength looks like. It's not violence. It's not control. It's a calm man telling a terrified woman to breathe, making her feel safe when the world is chaos." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "So this ceremony isn't just to thank Marcus, though I do thank him with everything I have. It's to announce something." Sarah glanced at the mayor, who nodded encouragingly. "I'm starting a foundation, Breathe Initiative, dedicated to helping domestic violence survivors and supporting veteran mental health services. Because Marcus showed me that broken people can still save others, that our trauma doesn't define us, how we respond to it does." She turned fully to Marcus now, tears streaming down her face. "You told me anyone would have helped. You're wrong. But you're right that anyone can learn to help. That's what Breathe Initiative will teach. Bystander intervention, recognizing abuse, supporting survivors, helping veterans. You inspired this, Marcus. You inspired me to turn the worst night of my life into something that might save others." The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed by the enormity of what Sarah had created from their shared trauma. The mayor presented him with a commendation, fancy certificate, city seal, words he barely registered. Photos were taken. Hands were shaken. Through it all, Marcus felt something shifting inside him. Not healing, that would take years, maybe forever, but purpose. The thing he'd lost when he retired, when the mission ended and civilian life loomed empty before him. Maybe he couldn't save everyone. Maybe he couldn't even save himself, not completely. But maybe, just maybe, he could help others find their way through the darkness. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed and news crews packed their equipment, Sarah approached Marcus one final time. "I meant what I said about the foundation, but I need help running it. Specifically, I need someone who understands trauma, who knows how to teach intervention, who—" "I'm not qualified," Marcus interrupted. "I'm barely holding myself together." "Which makes you exactly qualified. Please, Marcus, at least think about it." He looked at her, this woman who'd been a terrified victim 2 weeks ago, now standing tall, building something meaningful from ashes and pain. "I'll think about it," he heard himself say. Sarah's smile could have lit the entire plaza. Neither of them knew it yet, but that moment, that reluctant promise, would change both their lives in ways the restaurant incident never could. The viral video had made Marcus famous for 3 seconds. But what came next would define him forever. 6 months later, the community center gym smelled of rubber mats and determination. Saturday morning sunlight streamed through high windows, illuminating 15 women arranged in a semicircle, each wearing comfortable workout clothes and expressions that mixed nervousness with fierce resolve. Marcus Reed stood before them, no longer wearing his military uniform but a simple black t-shirt and athletic pants. The shadows under his eyes had lessened, not disappeared, never fully disappeared, but softened. His hands, once prone to trembling during stressful moments, hung steady at his sides. "Good morning," he began, his voice carrying the same calm authority it had that night in the restaurant. "Before we start, I need you to understand something. You're not here because you're victims. You're here because you're survivors who refuse to stay afraid." Beside him, Sarah Mitchell stood with a confidence that would have been unimaginable 7 months ago. She wore a Breathe Initiative t-shirt, the foundation logo depicting a simple wave pattern representing controlled breathing. Her once bruised wrist now bore only faint yellow traces, souvenirs of a nightmare that felt like it belonged to a different person. "I was where you are," Sarah added, her voice strong and clear. "Terrified, broken, convinced I'd never feel safe again, but you can reclaim your power. Marcus taught me that. Now we're going to teach you." The class had become Marcus's anchor. What started as a favor to Sarah, just one class, see how it goes, had evolved into the center of his new life. Every Saturday morning, sometimes twice a week when demand warranted, he taught practical self-defense combined with trauma-informed awareness. But these weren't typical self-defense classes focused solely on physical techniques. Marcus had learned from Dr. Morrison, from his own therapy, from the veterans he counseled. Real safety came from understanding trauma responses, recognizing danger early, and knowing when to fight versus when to flee. "First exercise," Marcus announced. "Environmental awareness, close your eyes." The women complied, some more hesitantly than others. "Now tell me, without looking, how many exits are in this room?" A pause, then a woman in her 40s, Lisa, answered. 3. Main door behind us, emergency exit on the left wall, equipment room door on the right." "Good. Anyone feel their heart rate increase when I asked you to close your eyes?" Several hands rose. "That's normal," Marcus said gently. "Hypervigilance is a survival mechanism. We're not trying to eliminate it, we're learning to manage it. Open your eyes." He moved through the fundamentals with patience that surprised even himself. Situational awareness, boundary setting, basic strikes and releases, but always, he emphasized the psychological component. When someone violates your space, he demonstrated with Sarah as a volunteer, your brain floods with stress hormones. Fight, flight, or freeze. All of them are normal responses. We're training your muscle memory so if you freeze, your body knows what to do anyway. Sarah played the aggressor, role reversal she'd specifically requested as part of her own healing. She grabbed Marcus's wrist, mimicking Derek's grip from that night. In one smooth motion, Marcus rotated his arm, broke the hold, and created distance. See how I didn't try to overpower the grip? I used mechanics. Thumb is the weak point of any grab, rotate toward it. He demonstrated in slow motion. Now pair up, practice on each other. The room filled with the sounds of women reclaiming their power. Shuffling feet, focused breathing, occasional nervous laughter that morphed into determined grunts. Marcus moved between pairs, correcting form, offering encouragement. A young woman named Jasmine struggled with the technique, frustration evident on her face. "I can't get it," she said, near tears. "What if I can't do it when it matters?" Marcus knelt beside her, voice soft. 3 months ago, I sat in my apartment, convinced I had nothing to offer anyone, thought I was too broken to be useful. You know what changed? Jasmine shook her head. Someone needed help, and my body moved before my broken brain could talk me out of it. The training was there, buried under PTSD and self-doubt, but there when it mattered. That's what we're building, muscle memory stronger than fear. Something shifted in Jasmine's expression. She nodded, tried again, and this time executed the release perfectly. After class, as women filtered out, some heading to the support group Sarah ran afterward, others returning to lives slowly being rebuilt, Marcus and Sarah sat on the gym's bleachers, sharing water bottles and comfortable silence. "Kevin graduated yesterday," Marcus said finally. Kevin, the young vet from that first night at the VA, had been attending group sessions religiously. Got his 6-month sobriety chip, started community college. He's doing okay. "That's wonderful," Sarah smiled. "How are you doing?" It was their ritual question. Every Saturday after class, Sarah asked. And Marcus, slowly learning that vulnerability wasn't weakness, actually answered honestly. "Better, still have nightmares, still struggle with crowds, but Dr. Morrison says progress isn't linear." He paused. "The new therapist you connected me with, Dr. Chen, he's good. Understanding trauma from a veteran's perspective helps." "I'm glad." Sarah pulled her knees to her chest. "Derek's parole hearing is next month. My lawyer says with his behavior in prison, 3 fights, multiple infractions, he'll likely serve the full 5 years. How do you feel about that?" "Safe," Sarah said simply. "For the first time in 4 years I feel safe, not just physically but—" She gestured vaguely at the gym, at the 15 empty mats, at the life she'd built from ruins. "I have purpose now. Breathe Initiative has helped 47 women in 6 months. 47, Marcus. We're expanding to 3 more cities next quarter." Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "You've built something incredible." "We've built something incredible," Sarah corrected. "I couldn't do this without you. These women, they need to see that men can be protectors, not just threats. That strength can be gentle. You show them that every week." They sat in companionable silence, 2 people who'd found each other in the worst moment of one life and the continuation of another's struggle. Their friendship had become the unexpected gift of trauma, understanding without explanation, support without judgment. "I've been thinking," Sarah said carefully, "about that night, if you hadn't been there." "But I was," Marcus interrupted gently. "And you were brave enough to scream for help, to fight back, to survive and then build something from it. That's all you, Sarah. We both know it takes more than one person to heal." "Yeah," Marcus agreed, thinking of his therapy sessions, his veteran support group, the network of broken people helping each other stay whole. "It does." That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment, no longer the dark cave of curtains and isolation it had been 7 months ago. Photos now decorated the walls. His SEAL team, the Saturday morning class group photo, Sarah at the Breathe Initiative fundraiser. Small plants lined the windowsill, A suggestion from Dr. Morrison about creating life in his space. His phone buzzed. A text from the young woman Jasmine. Used the wrist release technique tonight. X showed up at my apartment. I got away and called police. Thank you for teaching me I'm stronger than I knew. Marcus stared at the message, feeling something profound shift in his chest. This was it. This was why he'd survived when Tommy Chen and 6 other teammates hadn't. Not because he was better or stronger or more deserving. Randomness didn't work that way. But maybe he'd survived so he could be in that restaurant on that Friday night. So he could teach Jasmine to escape. So he could help Kevin find sobriety. So he could show 15 women every Saturday that they were warriors, not victims. Purpose didn't erase trauma. It didn't cure PTSD or bring back the dead or undo Sarah's 2 years of abuse. But it gave meaning to the survival. It transformed senseless pain into deliberate healing. Marcus typed back, "You saved yourself. I just showed you what you already had inside. Proud of you." Then he opened his journal, another therapy assignment, and began to write. Not about the nightmares or the guilt or the loss. Instead, he wrote about Jasmine's escape, about Kevin's graduation, about Sarah's foundation helping its 48th woman. He wrote about finding purpose in the wreckage. Outside his window, San Diego glittered in the darkness, full of people fighting their own battles, carrying their own scars. Somewhere in that city, someone would need help tomorrow. And while Marcus couldn't save everyone, couldn't fix everything, couldn't even fully fix himself, he could show up, he could teach, he could be the person who moved when others froze. And in a world that often felt broken beyond repair, sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. The end.